Today, I wanted to talk about burnout and, falling into ruts because I feel like they're very similar. However, I personally feel like they're different. To me, when I say that I'm in a bit of a rut, I mean like I feel stuck. I feel like bored and uninspired and just kind of in an overall like bad mood. And obviously, it's a spectrum. Sometimes you feel like you're in like a little bit of a rut and you can just fix it in like 5 minutes. Like you're like, oh, I feel bored. And then you're like, why don't I go do this? And then it's done. But sometimes you get in a bit of a rut to the point where you can feel a little bit depressy, a little bit like existential crisis. Do you know what I mean? That to me is more of a rut. Like it takes a little bit more mental energy to get out of like a proper rut. Do you know what I mean? Whereas to me, burnout, I would more so define burnout more of like a overwhelm and like an exhaustion. Do you know what I mean? Like to me, if I'm burnt out, it's usually because I've been living my life in a way that isn't sustainable, you know? It usually for me would come from trying to do everything at once and trying to not let any kind of area in my life give and give myself to like everything all at once, which just you can't do. Do you know what I mean? That to me is more like burnout, and then you kind of hit a wall and crash. Whereas rut is more like it happens kind of slowly, and sometimes you don't really realize why you feel like shit until you think, okay, I think I'm in a bit of a rut. I think I've slowly got myself into a bit of a rut by it's gonna be different for everyone, but for me, it's like monotony and kind of being in autopilot for too long. And I feel like it's almost like this might make me sound a little bit insane, but like there's a way that like the majority of the world works, right? Like we go to work and we come home and we cook dinner and blah, blah, blah. There's kind of like an autopilot that we all fall into. Like we all live our lives a little bit differently, but like a lot of us just kind of live the same lives and do the same shit, you know? And like we all need different things really to make us happy. We are all we're all really similar, but we're all a bit different. Like our what's gonna make us feel like inspired by life and like in love with life is gonna be different for everyone. Like for some people it will be they need to be creative, otherwise they will like go insane. Do you know what I mean? Like some people that's what they need. Some people need to spend a lot of time outdoors. Some people need to, see their friends all the time. Like everyone's a bit different in terms of like what really fulfills them. And I think for me, forgetting to do the things that actually fucking like make me enjoy life and spending too long just going through the motions of doing like the normal day-to-day shit without infusing a bit of like individuality into my day. Do you know what I mean? And then I feel like over time, if you are kind of living in that autopilot and not infusing what you actually enjoy into your days, I think it can cause you to kind of fall out of love with your life a little bit, which, makes sense because as much as we all basic needs, we're all very similar. We all kind of need to be in different environments to thrive and like really get what we want out of our lives and live a life that really makes us happy. And a lot of us, I guess, it's quite easy to just for us all to live in the exact same way and forget that like that might not work for you. Does that make sense? Like yes, you have to kind of there's a lot of things that we do because we have to, like work, and we have responsibilities and things. And that can be kind of draining to your soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily, for most of us, super fulfilling working and spending a lot of your time doing that. And I think that's why it's so important outside of work to make sure that you're kind of actually doing shit that fulfills you and that like makes you really enjoy your life. And I think it's so easy to kind of feel so tired by the shit that you have to do that when it comes to your free time, you don't have the energy to then do what you actually want to do, which is why, like, the 9 to 5 and the corporate world and everything, like, is kind of so fucking depressing. And a lot of people are kind of choosing to go down different routes and do completely different things and be like, I'd rather have less fucking money and like do other shit. Like, I feel like a lot of people, my generation, are like choosing to not revolve our lives as much as we can around work so much, which I think can definitely make us a lot happier. Again, it's going to be like person to person what makes you happy. That's kind of the point of what I'm saying. But I think because like work and things like that can be so tiring, I think then for me, I know I can fall into the habit a lot of the time after work or on the weekend of just when I have free time going for a drink with a friend, going and getting some food with a friend. And I love doing these things, don't get me wrong. But it's another thing that I think it can make me fall into a bit of a rut because it can feel a little bit like there needs to be something that's a little bit more fulfilling to my soul and my core. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think I spend a lot of my free time over the last like year or two, maybe longer. I spend a lot of my free time like outside and like swimming in the sea and I've gotten really into reading or I'll like I for me like being outside in nature does wonders. Like it does wonders to my actual happiness. Do you know what I mean? Like if have an afternoon free, maybe I would go sit somewhere pretty, read a book, go in the sea, lie on the beach, go for a walk, listen to a podcast. Like for me, if I don't leave my house enough, then like I will slowly be miserable. And, that's again a general need for people. Like, we need sunlight and shit. So, like, obviously. But again, like, it's easy to forget these things. And, like, I think, going out for a drink and going out for dinner and stuff is like a very, like, common thing that people do for fun. And I think sometimes we get kind of uncreative. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what I mean by, like, it can put you in a bit of a rut that it's fun. But sometimes it's like you could use your free time in a more creative way and get a lot more out of it. But again, then you come back to that problem of like, but you don't always have the energy to be super creative when you've been at work for 8 hours and like maybe you have to get up early the next day and you're like, I don't have the fucking energy to like go paddleboarding or go do like a barbecue on the beach. Maybe I just want to go for a drink for an hour and then go home and like go to bed. And that's so fair. Do you know what I mean? I just think it's it's kind of not that hard to fall into a bit of a rut and fall out of love with your life because of the way that like things are in the world. I don't mean that to sound depressing because we definitely do have a level of control, like hugely. So I wouldn't feel like you're necessarily doing something hugely wrong if you're like, I feel like I keep getting into a rut or like being really burnt out because like life is hectic as fuck and like there's a lot of things that we have to do that we don't want to do all the time and spend a lot of our time at work and maybe you have kids or maybe you have like pets that you need to walk and like I love dogs so much, but it's another thing, isn't it? Walking your dog is another thing. I love cooking, but it's still another thing. And like, there's just a lot of things to life, and it is quite easy to, when trying to keep up with all of that shit, forget to actually do stuff that makes you feel actually alive. Do you know what I mean? And I think for me, that is how it's so easy to get into a rut. And I think as a lot of it is about your like small habits, like I said, I do think one factor is how are you actually spending your free time? Like, are you actually spending it in a way that you come away from feeling better? Or are you kind of doing the easier things all the time, like going for a drink or like, again, it's like staying local all the time is so much more convenient and so much more easy when, you have a weekend off. It's like, oh, it's just like go out in our like hometown, like where we live. But there's so many places, like, even if you drive a half an hour out, do you know what I mean? That little things like that, I think for me can help with not feeling like it's kind of like a preventative thing. Like if you get out of your daily routine and your kind of the rhythm of how you normally live your life, I think it can prevent you from feeling so burnt out or in a rut because you're kind of adding some novelty. And I think, we need that. Like we get bored if there's no novelty. And I think it's tricky because like even me, like I'm so routined. I love routine. Humans are like creatures of habit. I say this all the time. Like we are wired to like thrive from routines. We just do the same shit all the time. But at the same time, I think being too routined can make you fucking miserable. And I never thought I'd say that because I'm the most routine person ever. But like a bit of spontaneity, a bit of novelty can actually make you enjoy your life so much more. And that might sound really fucking obvious because it probably is. But I do think a huge part of getting burnt out and feeling in a rut is you're in your comfort zone all the fucking time. And like Like I said, a lot of our daily lives revolve around having to do shit that's in our comfort zone. We do it all the time. We have to be routined about certain things. But then it's so easy to spend ages before you've done anything new, like before you've done anything exciting and a bit different and a bit out of your comfort zone. Like I said, it can be as simple as on the weekend, maybe instead of you and your boyfriend going into town for a drink, maybe you and your boyfriend drive half an hour and go somewhere you've never been. Like, it's something small like that. And you might think, like, I don't have the energy to do that because, like I said, your work week or whatever you do can run you down and can be tiring. You only have so much energy. But I remember hearing this on Mel Robbins' podcast. When am I not referencing her? I absolutely love her. She was talking about how a lot of the time when you feel like uninspired and you've got like too many things on your plate, she was like, you naturally think, okay, to like feel less stressed, I need to take some things off my plate. But she was saying it's actually kind of backwards, because what you really need to do is add something to your plate that actually like makes you feel alive. And then you won't be so overwhelmed by what's already on your plate. Does that make sense? Like, it seems backwards if you're so tired by your work or your week or whatever you've been doing to then make an effort to go to like a different fucking city or town near you on the weekend, because that seems like it's taking more from my energy source, is it not? But that energizes the fuck out of you. Getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that makes you feel alive and excited will actually give you so much more energy, because that fulfillment and that excitement and kind of passion that you feel when you're just going and doing something fun that actually like does something to you, not just like is the same shit all the time, it almost kind of like wakes you up out of the haze of being like doing the same shit over and over again. And then you kind of snap out of it for a bit and you feel so much more energized. And I think for me, that is a huge part of getting out of a rut, is like I have to think, have I been doing the same shit for like weeks or months? Because no wonder then. Do you know what I mean? No wonder I feel like kind of shit. And sometimes you don't even have to like go anywhere. It's just changing like even like the music that you listen to. Sometimes if you listen to like the same music all the time, that can make you feel kind of fucking bored. You feel like you're living the same exact day every single day, Groundhog Day, when you're listening to the same like 5 songs on the way to work, to do the same fucking thing at your job, to come home and cook the same one of 5 meals. Like, of course we then get fucking burnt out. Do you know what I mean? For me, little things like changing my music, making a new playlist of songs I actually don't know, it's just some novelty to like infuse into your day. And little things like maybe you drive to work a different route. Maybe you drive, instead of going right, you go left. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems so stupid of like a piece of advice, but I think it actually just switches your brain on and takes it out of autopilot, and you're like, oh my god, there's things that I haven't seen and places that I haven't been and songs I haven't heard, and there is actually quite a lot to life that's fun and exciting. I just have been living in the same little bubble. Do you know what I mean? Because like I said, it can make you feel kind of depressed and kind of like existential crisis, where you're like, oh my god, everything's boring, like life sucks. But then you kind of realize you've been looking like this far and that's all you've been looking at, and then you're just getting bored when there's like miles beyond it. Even of just like fucking music and films and shows and stuff. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you need to move to a new country, you need that kind of novelty. Like, that's, of course that would like probably also fix the problem, but it's unrealistic. Most people can't just fuck off to like France, you know, like. And I think that's actually another thing, is I think we feel like we need to do some sort of like major life change when we feel burnt out. I know I do. Like, when I feel like I'm in a rut and burnt out, I jump to like, okay, I need to go traveling. Or like, okay, I need to move. I need to live somewhere new. I need to change my job. I think of all these big life changes. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's what I need to like get me out of this rut. Like, I just need to move. Or like start a new career. And it's like, sometimes that's not the answer. Like, sometimes I think your daily life and your habits and what you're doing day to day, that's all you need to tweak a lot of the time. Is like, the answer most of the time is if it's a rut, you've probably just got a little bit overly routined to the point where you are like banging your head against the wall doing the same shit every single day. That's usually how you get in a rut, just doing the same shit all the time. You're too routined. burnout, you're probably trying to live in a way that's just unsustainable. Like, you're trying to, like, be everywhere all at once, and it's just unsustainable. But you know, I don't think the answer a lot of the time is in the massive life changes. I think it's you just need to tweak your actual daily life. Even just stuff like maybe you're like, okay, for the next month, I'm gonna wake up like an hour earlier than I normally do. Just because I'm never normally awake at that time. And then I could like make a coffee and sit outside, and like I've just given myself this new hour. This is new. This is changing your routine. It's something different that is actually gonna make you feel like you have some control over your life and you can do fun shit. And like, again, it sounds stupid because that's not fun. And again, you'd be like, that's taking away my energy. That's an hour of sleep I could be having. But like, I promise you that these little things that seem backwards actually give you more fucking like reason to live. Do you know what I mean? Like, more excitement. Because then you're like, okay, well, maybe you have time to like actually make a nice breakfast, and maybe you could ring a friend, or you could go for a little walk, or you could just sit in your garden and drink your coffee, and you know, whatever brings you joy. Like, again, it's never going to be the same. Like, we're all different. Like, little things like that, like waking up at a different time, or maybe you decide for a month, okay, I'm gonna try being vegan, fuck it, things like that. Like, just doing something that's out of your comfort zone and new brings a little bit of like a new flavor to your life. That, I think, is what gets you out of like ruts and stuff. You don't need to move country or change your career or like cut out your friends and start a new friend. It's like, so often we think it's all the big things in our life that are wrong and making us feel like that, but it's just usually the small shit. And I think as well, a lot of the time when you feel burnt out, you think, I need a holiday. That's like what people say, like, I need a week away, I need a break, I need some like sun, I need to go on holiday, I need a vacation. And it's like, again, to me, that's like, what? So you've been living your life in a way that's burnt you out, and you think, okay, I need to go on vacation for a week, and then come back to that exact same life that's burnt me out, and I'm gonna be fine. Like, don't get me wrong, a vacation, a holiday is always going to be kind of refreshing. It's nice because it's fucking novelty, because it's a change of scene, it's something different, new people, new things to look at, new restaurants, new, like, it's a change of scene. But you don't need to fuck off to another country to add some novelty to your life. Do you know what I mean? And I think things like that, they'll short-term work because you'll feel more relaxed because you've had a nice change of scene, nice little holiday, haven't had to be working and doing all this shit. Like, a holiday's great, don't get me wrong, I'm not shitting on a holiday. Like, we do need complete breaks, and sometimes to fuck off is like the best thing. Sometimes that's like all you need to do is go on vacation. I'm not like shitting on vacation, I love vacation. But my point is, I think it's short term, you know, it calms your nervous system down a lot, which is the main thing. It brings you peace and you calm down because you come out of like the fucking like rhythm of everything for a bit, and then you feel better for a while, and then you kind of get back on the horse when you come back, and then you need another vacation in like a month. Do you know what I mean? Then you're back to saying, oh my God, I need to go on holiday. When, like I said, I think if you feel burnt out, my advice, again, who the fuck am I to give you advice? But like, I'm going to anyway. My advice is, it's in your daily life. It's tweaking your little habits and how you're living your life and right now, and looking at what you're doing now that's making you feel so burnt out. And of course, there's going to be things that you can't change, like I said, work or kids or parents, or maybe you, I don't know, whatever the fuck you do that's like not optional. But like, there is so much that is in your control that you're probably not even thinking about changing, because we focus on the big things and we're like, oh, I've got this job, I've got these kids, I've got all these things on my plate that I can't do anything about. The only option is to have a vacation and a break from everything. Like, and sure, maybe like sometimes that is what you need. Maybe it is. But like, you're forgetting that, like I said, when you wake up, your morning routine, your evening routine, when you go to bed, what kind of books you read, what kind of music you listen to, where you go for your walks, what kind of food you're eating when you go out for dinner, like what restaurants you're trying. Are you going to the same coffee shop every single day? Are you going to the same 2 restaurants every other weekend? Like when you go to the beach, are you going to the one that's nearest your house every single time you want to go to the beach? Or are you going to some that you haven't tried? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much shit that like we point the finger at, like where we live, our job, our relationship, our friends. It's always like there's something wrong and it's always never us. Do you know what I mean? You know, and I think as well, like, that's huge. When you feel like you're in a rut and you're kind of burnt out, you then like get kind of irritable, and you can start like picking fights with people that aren't the problem. Like, maybe you would, if you felt really burnt out, then maybe you would kind of look at your relationship through that lens, and you would be a bit more argumentative and be a bit more like, ugh, because you feel like shit, you're now taking it out on like people that are nothing to do with the problem. Do you know what I mean? If you feel uninspired and bored, I've had that before, where then if you're in a relationship, you can kind of think like, oh, well, it's because they're boring, and it's because we don't do anything fun, and like my relationship's gotten boring, and that must be what it is, and like my friends aren't fun, and they don't want to do anything, and blah, blah, blah. When it's like, sometimes it's like, it's just not anything to do with anyone else. It's just like, sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes maybe you are dating someone really boring, and that does not help. Like, that's also quite possible. But I think it can make you kind of look at shit through that lens and think like, okay, what can I blame? Whose fault is it? Like, I'm feeling like this. And then you just get kind of like nitpicky and like pessimistic and like, oh, like we're having the same shit again for dinner and we're doing the same shit and blah, blah, blah. When it's like, if you feel like that, it's quite often your own daily habits and stuff. Again, I don't know your situation. Maybe it's not. But a lot of the time, it's like, it's quite easy to point the finger at other things. And a lot of the time you can change it. That's just kind of from my experience, like, how it can feel. It can make you feel kind of just grumpy with the people in your life when it's like not necessarily anything that they've done, and maybe actually it's completely irrelevant to them. Sometimes it's just about remembering the fact that you have free will, and like, you don't have to do the same shit all the time. Like, I have this conversation with my friends all the time where like, sometimes you just forget that you have free will, and like, if you have a car, like, you could just go somewhere. You could just go somewhere that you've never been. You could just drive there, or like, you could just walk somewhere that you could just wake up and do the most random shit. Nothing's stopping you. You are in control of what you do. You have free will. No, and that's actually really freeing and fun. And I think it can feel quite draining when you feel like, oh, I'm just trapped and doing the same shit all the time. But like, you actually do have free will, and you could just do whatever the fuck you want with a lot of your time. Obviously not all of it. I know that. But there are some things that like, we're just not like using the opportunity to practice free will and do some fucking fun things, get out of your comfort zone. And like I said, if you go out for dinner and you go to the same place every time, and you have a car and you could go somewhere else, that's your own fault that you're going to the same fucking places and then you're bored. Do you know what I mean? There is an element of like, you're forgetting that you actually do have control over half the shit you do. And it doesn't need to be so monotonous and boring. You've just fallen into a routine and you like to go to where's safe and familiar, but then don't complain when you're bored, because like, that's your own fucking fault. Do you know what I mean? Safe and familiar is lovely, but too much of that can make you want to fucking scream. It really can. And your life needs to feel fun to you. Like, at the end of the day, your life needs to feel fun as much as you can make it fun for you. And and like, an example of free will is like, recently I was gonna walk to the beach, and I walked past like, in a lot of towns and cities, they have these like bikes, that you can hire, and like, you connect it to your phone and you like pay to cycle it somewhere, and then you like have to put it back in a bay. They have them in like cities everywhere. They're all just called different things. And they've had them in the town that I live in for fucking ages, but there's for some reason been this thing in my head where I'm like, there's something embarrassing about riding a bike. I don't know why, because there isn't. Like, I fucking love riding a bike, but there was something where I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. And like, fairly recently, I walked past it and I was like, I could just ride the bike to the beach. Like, I could just, fuck it, I could do it. I haven't ridden a bike for a while, but I was like, fuck it. And I think it's because I was feeling a little bit like I was in a rut, mildly, like a very mild case of a rut. And I was just feeling a little bit like, this is what I meant when I said at the start, there's a spectrum. Sometimes all you need to do is one fun thing and then you're fine. And a lot of the time, that, to be honest, that's all it takes to be like, oh, life is fun. I just have been boring. And yeah, I was just like, I could walk to the beach, or I could just take this bike. So I got like the app on my phone and I just took this bike to the beach and never done it. And I was like, this is like low-key terrifying, because they're like electric, so they actually go really fast, which I've never like been on an electric bike either. But when I tell you, it was like probably the highlight of that week, because it was so fun. And also like, it was an inner child thing, because I used to cycle all the time when I was a kid, and like, a lot of my childhood was, like cycling around and going on roller skates and climbing trees and like good childhood shit. And I was like, I feel like a 10-year-old me again, like riding a bike to the beach, and like, through like the way to the beach, I have to go through this like foresty area, and I was like, this is just so pretty. And Sometimes all it takes is just doing something a bit out of your comfort zone, seeing beyond the fucking like 1 meter that you actually like normally look at and all the things that you normally do, and actually being like, oh, there's things outside of it. Why don't I just try something that I haven't tried? And then I was like, wait, this is so fun. And again, like the fact that it's embarrassing is like just fucking stupid, because like we're on a floating rock, nothing's real, nothing matters, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, it doesn't matter. I did an episode on that recently called How to Stop Taking Things So Seriously. And like this is just another example of like, it's not that fucking serious. Like, we get so hung up on shit that's just so stupid, and then make our own lives more boring because we don't take fun opportunities to do shit that we actually want to do. You know, we don't even consider that there's options to do things other ways sometimes because we're so stuck in our ways. We're so routined. And like, I'm literally 22 and like, I'm stuck in my ways. I'm not stuck in my ways, but I am a routined person. But the thing is, like, I love to change it up because I know that I go mental if I don't. So at least I'm like calling myself out fairly regularly about like, Brooke, you're being boring, you're doing the same shit all the time, like change it. But yeah, anyway, that's just like an example of like, I was feeling a bit bored, I was gonna go and do the same shit, like walk to the same beach, and I was like, fuck it, let's ride a bike. You know, there's one there that I can hire, all I need is an app. Why don't I just do that? Like, I have free will, what's stopping me? Nothing. I'm just being a little bitch. And I did it and I had a great time, and I was actually having so much fun. And it was the most minor thing ever. Like, it was such a small difference from what I was gonna do. But it's like, that's what I mean, is just minor fucking changes in what you do with your day to day is all you need to do. Ride a bike instead of walk. Maybe go to a different coffee shop or something. And also another thing recently, I talked about this at some point. I went camping recently, which I haven't done since I was like 12. Me and my friend went camping like midweek when like I didn't have work for a couple of days randomly in the middle of the week, and I was like, why don't we just drive? Like, I drove like an hour or so to somewhere I've never been, and we just camped for a couple of nights because we both just thought, like, we have free will, fuck it, like, this is so random, like, let's just go camp at this random place and like spend a couple nights here, you know, make some fun food, do a barbecue, bring the camping stove, explore a town nearby that like we haven't been, spend some time in nature, play cards, have some wine, chat, like have some quality time together, and like break the routine. Like, it's so easy to just, with your friends and stuff, just be like, okay, I'll see you on this day and we'll go for food, or I'll see you on this day and we'll go for a drink. But it's like, sometimes like I have the opportunity to go and do something way more fun, I just like can't be bothered, or like ugh, and then I'm like doing the same shit all the time. So that's another little thing that we were both like, fuck it, let's just book it. It was so cheap as well. I think we spent like £30 each or something for 2 nights, which is such a cheap like little trip away. But it made such a big difference because then you feel like, okay, I've had a change of scene, I've done something different, I've practiced my free will, reminded myself I actually do have some control over what I do. I don't need to be in a rut and an autopilot. I can actually be like, no, I want to go do something different. And that's what makes you feel alive. Do you know what I mean? That's what makes you feel in love with your life, is when you're doing shit that you actually enjoy and want to do, rather than what you feel like you have to do all the time because everyone else is doing it and it's just life. Your life is what you make of it. As Hannah Montana once said, life's what you make it, so let's make it rock. Anyway, on that note, I'm gonna go home and stop talking. I guarantee that's not the first time I've quoted Hannah Montana on this podcast. It definitely isn't. But yeah, I'm gonna go home. I hope the rain wasn't too annoying in this episode. I hope there was some advice or something of use in this episode. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I will talk to you next Tuesday.